Welcome to Exploring the Ozarks, where we learn what defines the culture of the Ozarks one person, place, and story at a time. We're here with Matt Graham and David Carr at Studio One. Join us as we explore the story of today's guest. Here's Matt.
Oh yeah. Hi everybody, welcome to Exploring the Ozarks. Today I always say I'm excited for our guests, but this one, but it's so funny because every week I'm like, man, I'm always really excited for the people we have on this show.
Because we bring on good guests.
We do.
Share that.
Share that, like it, talk about it. Right now everybody's talking about, what you had on your report card at one point of talking too much. And
at the time of recording, that was a big one.
That was a good one. So
but we are going to come up with more fun things for people to comment and talk about, I think.
Oh, so you're about to get it right here.
Yeah.
But today we have none other than Mr. Jarad Giddens, City Nixa Mayor. And Jarad, thank you for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it, dude. Lots to talk about. If you live in Nixa, I was born and raised in Nixa my whole life. He's excluded because he's from Ozark.
But I lived in the Nixa mailing address.
See? He was this close to greatness, we say. Yeah.
Or this close to terribleness.
Yeah, could be. Feel free to cross your legs, too, like I like to do. Our new setup.
I'm the only one.
The van bench, though.
We're still getting used to it.
Ambiance that it has. You can be comfortable.
This van bench came from Ozark.
Look at that. See, something good came out of Ozark. That's great.
Though I say that, it was Nixa, but it was spent a lot of time at Ozark schools.
It was a Nixa mailing address.
This is actually a funny story. When I was growing up, as teenagers, you all want to have your own car, right? So we had a couple of different cars. We had a Honda. My dad had a Toyota Avalon. Then we had this 8-seater van for our family because we had a big family.
Heck yeah.
So what did our parents give us to drive to school?
Yep.
The 8-seater van.
Yep, I learned how to drive in my dad's church van. The big red van was much like that.
That was where I learned my very first time driving. Was this? Literally, the seat was in the van. I mean, that's why this is I've had this seat for it's been almost 30 years now.
You're like, get rid of the van, but I'm taking the seat.
These things are comfy. I mean, Jarad agrees.
Yeah. I mean, we used to take them on road trips too, to Florida and stuff. So 14 hours on one of those is still okay. You can sleep on it and everything.
You can sleep on it. It's
back
comfy.
when you could get away with not wearing.
And even after 30 years, I mean, and this is seen literally across United States trips. I mean, it has not just been sitting around. It's been kept clean.
This has a lot of stories.
It has a ton of stories.
It's cultured. We say it's cultured.
We'll have to start doing a moment with the bench. That'll be our new segment on here. The van bench.
But so.
There was one time we turned it around, made it into a limo and stuff. Anyway, I'll tell you more.
You can do that.
You can, because the way that you can't see them down there, but they slide into the brackets, but the bracket spaces are even on either side.
Yeah.
So you can flip them around and it actually still locks in.
I should have tried that because I had to always vacuum that thing out, and taking those seats out was always not fun to do. But I wish I could have been cool as you. If I would have gone to Ozark, I don't know. There it is.
If only.
But
but that's our moment on the van bench.
There it is.
All right.
Cut that one out. Use it later. But as far as growing up in Nixa my whole life, it was in a time that it was from. I was born in '81, and being that I'm 42 now. Nixa just exploded from the 80s on until today, still growing out of control. So, I think the biggest thing is watching it grow, watching all the changes, watching all the things that didn't change over the years. The last, 10, 15 years with the former Mayor Brian Steele, who did a phenomenal job with Nixa, especially for the hand that he was dealt and some of the things he had to go through. But watching how you guys have handled Nixa, because Nixa can be... any city can be a monster inside of itself when you have all of these people that we talked about last podcast, where everybody's moving here from different states. They all have different ideas on how city government should be ran. A lot of these people and no offense to anybody from California, I have a lot of clients, a lot of friends from California, and you're from California, but it's funny is I watch them and I talk to them after I do their home loan or whatever, and they'll call me with all these questions because it's a small town. They're not used to it. And they're like,
why are people waving at me?
Well, that's one thing that some people love it. And some are like, what? Do I know that person? What do I do?
So I am from California, but I was born there, but I moved here from Arizona, from Phoenix.
Oh, even better.
So all these experiences you're saying I can relate to. I mean, who hasn't been waved at by a random stranger?
Well, in a big city, when we would take trips in the van, my dad would, first thing he'd say when we pull in is don't make eye contact. And keep the
don't
windows
wave.
up. You know, like you're like, is it that bad? You know, but just a rule of
No,
thumb when
it's
you're
not.
not used to it. Yeah. Now I have found out that people are friendly. pretty
It's
much
funny because
everywhere.
we were talking before the program about like neighborhoods coming together and starting to start to talk to each other more, which we're going to talk more about later on. But that just reminds me, like being in the big city, we had these huge neighborhoods, and we would get dropped off. This was in the '90s with a school bus, and we'd walk 5 or 6 blocks to our house.
Gosh,
we'd be rollerblading to school and biking because there's sidewalks all the way there.
Sure.
But we also had these huge block parties.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
You'd have everybody in the neighborhood just get together once a year,
That's
twice a year, and
cool.
we would have these huge block parties. And
See, the only time our neighborhood ever got together, we were like 3 acres each house, so kind of spread
Yeah.
out. It
We were
was
the same.
neighborhood watch parties, basically.
Yeah.
Where they would come together and be like, so it's a real quiet neighborhood. What do we talk about? Like, here's the phone list.
we
If
were
something
in a
happens,
similar-
call us.
we were in a similar cul-de-sac type, like 10 houses all on 2-3 acres, and we would get together once a year for like a dinner, I think.
Right, but I
that
think
was about
that's
it.
lost these days,
Yeah.
And but before we go to that, but seeing what you guys have gone through and what this all these people that move here from out of state, they come here, and they think they wanted to get out of those places because of how it was going or where it was headed, I guess too.
Yep.
Then they come here and they want this small town feel, and then they're like, "How come you guys don't do this? How come you don't do that?" And you're like, "Hold on, you said you moved here." Because you liked that aspect. Now all of a sudden you want to try to change it to what you had, and that's not how it rolls here. I guess that's not how the kids talk, but I say that now.
Yes.
So as far as like your guys' version of that, how do you guys handle all of these ideas that get thrown at you guys? I mean, we can get into some deep weeds on this, trust me, but how do you guys handle?
Where's our public transit system that's supposed to make it so we can go anywhere we want into a bus? And where's our free everything?
Let's start with
parks and
sidewalks.
horses and where are the sidewalks at? Why can't I?
They're being built, though.
That actually was a thing when I moved here, though. Like I said, I came from a place where I could bike to school as in elementary school. Yep. And then when I moved here, it's like, well, if I tried to bike to school, I'd be going along 14.
Yeah, highways.
Highway
Yes.
with these huge ditches. So I mean, there's these little things where you move from another place where they're bigger. And at the time, Nixa and Ozark were still growing quite a bit. And I feel like we're now getting to a point where critical mass, you're getting a lot
Pretty
more of
much.
these things done.
Yeah.
I actually got a letter from a kid. I'm not sure of his age. Like
Wow.
I think he's around
42.
10,
Matt's
11,
age.
12.
10?
Yeah.
Wow.
42.
Wow, young though.
And
Yeah.
wrote me it was a very good letter, well written, about a public transit system. And
I would love that.
Dang, dude.
And
He's
and
ahead of his time.
I know. Like
That's
I sent him a letter back, and I told him, have your parents reach out. I'd like you to come in and brainstorm with you because I might be able to learn something.
That's awesome.
But the one thing that we've looked at is, because I have looked at that, but I also, I work a lot with the other cities around, and every single time I'm with the city of Springfield, city utilities, they ask me if I want to buy a bus company.
Oh, okay.
That's funny.
Oh,
So that tells me don't ever do that. Do not ever do that.
right.
Well, the hard
There's
thing
a lot of
about
hardships that come with it.
a public transit like that, and I think the biggest one that we can most people can understand is that if you don't have the number of people that you need to ride it, it can't really fund itself.
Yes.
And the flip side of that too is, does a mass transit system, should it have to fund itself, or should it be something that we're okay as taxpayers saying, maybe we operated maybe a 10% loss, but we're okay with that because it helps our
Leave the
community
tax.
as a whole
Right.
to be better and be more,
Right.
walkable, and we can get people can move
Yep.
around more. So I mean, these are one of the trade-offs of government and public systems.
And I think, once the one thing that we lack in Christian County in general is big manufacturing, big jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
People in Nixa and Ozark, and especially
Outlying
Clever,
areas too, yeah.
Highlandville,
Yeah.
all of them, most of them travel to Springfield or Branson or one of the surrounding areas to work.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have a bus system go that far.
Right.
And, Springfield's a little bit
Trains. We'll talk about trains then
Trains.
next.
different. Yes, man.
Because that's cheaper than a bus, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
technically.
we could have some manufacturing if we had some trains. But that's one thing that you definitely look at is how many people. I mean, how often do you see people walking down the street in Nixa?
It's sporadic.
Most of it's exercise.
Right.
Not even
Yeah,
downtown
how do you determine that
Springfield.
too?
Yeah.
By doing a study or
Yeah.
something, you know what I mean?
You,
But
you go to downtown Springfield, it's the same way though.
Same
I
way.
mean, just the Ozarks just aren't known for. You don't walk to get to places in town. You do it on trails,
well, yeah.
or you do it for
Yes.
exercise.
And even the city of Springfield, they did something the
Yeah.
other night on the news about their bus system right now and how they make it as cheap as they possibly can. and people still are having problems getting on the buses because they can't afford it, or so at that point they're walking and it gets dangerous. But they have a lot more sidewalks than these rural states or cities do. So
the bus stop outside of my neighborhood is literally in a ditch.
Oh my gosh! See,
that's the kind of thing though where it's like,
safe?
You have to put the initial investment into it, but again, that's a question of where do people want their money to go? And people in the Ozarks are famous for not wanting taxes, and not wanting to have to pay for that sort of stuff, which is, there's some good to that and some bad to that.
Well, and now you're talking about emissions and electric buses.
Springfield has an electric bus.
They do, and I was talking to a friend of mine who works for not necessarily Caterpillar, but it's a subsidiary of that does the satellite technology for heavy equipment, and now buses. They're going to all electric buses in some of these big cities, but they're spending almost $500 million to get a bus station of all electric buses, and we still don't know if it's going to fund itself, but it's probably more tax money. But Texas is a little more tax heavy than we are. We are actually very cheap on our taxes. So anybody that gets your tax bill and you think it's high, go to any other state, and I promise you it's probably double. And I still think we have great amenities in this area, and we still have great, the cities do look nice. They do have a lot of things, but, one of the biggest things with economic impact and economic development is what you're talking about, though, with the commercial entities, the manufacturing, the warehousing, and stuff like that. So I've always wondered, is the commercial complex there, what do you guys call that in Nixa? It's the
industrial park.
Do you guys have plans on expanding that at all?
I'm actually working on that right now.
Figured you would be.
Nice.
The biggest problem that we have is land price.
Right.
And that's why we have so many residential neighborhoods, is because, obviously if you're going to develop something, you have to turn a profit.
Right. And
a commercial building is not always the best way to turn a profit if you can sell a eighth of an acre for $70,000.
Right, exactly.
With a house on it.
Or not even an eighth, sometimes.
Yeah. And so, our industrial park is currently full.
Right.
There is not an empty space there. And so I'm looking at the north, west, and south parts of that to see if we can expand it. Actually working on one idea right now, a lot that's in that area.
Yeah.
But the problem is there's a lot of, you probably heard this term multiple times, legacy landowners.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's about a very few families that own a lot of the land in Nixa.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, they know how much it's worth. And
yes.
It is.
And that was their plan anyways.
Yeah.
Was let's hold on to this land, let's buy it while we can. Nobody else is buying it. It was cheap at the time, but you're talking 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It was almost like they settled there, and now it's theirs. But then they said, this is a legacy thing for us because our kids, their grandkids. It goes on for generations that you hold on to this until you feel like it's the right time, and then you can make your money and that type of thing, which I wish we could all do that for our families.
Yeah.
So that's
because it impedes progress.
Well, and that's kind of
it's a balance again, though.
That's kind of the bad thing, and this is definitely probably not a very popular thing for me to say.
Sure.
But it's really holding up progress and will keep Nixa as a bedroom community.
Yes.
As long as that land that's sitting on the main thoroughfares in Nixa stays as high as it is,
it'll continue to stay empty pretty much.
Yeah. Or you have to have a big company come in.
Or apartments. But, and we didn't want to get too into the weeds because I don't want you getting blasted on Facebook later. Because I tend to defend.
Used to it.
But it's not necessary in my mind, and I don't want to point anybody out. But there's a good spin on this that we're going to talk about in a minute. But when you talk about taxes, or you talk about a Section 8 housing for low income, or an apartment building, it seems like you can't make any one type of person happy, no matter who it is. Even the one that's the nice one there on Main Street that's near that Bob's Easy Stop or Sinclair Station, whatever it is, super nice complex, and they charge a lot of money for those. So it's not going to be rip-rap people coming through there. And I wonder if people just forget that there's an apartment complex, a few of them, right across the street pretty much, just south of the Great Southern there. And it's like they don't even think about that. And those are much more low income, not as pretty. And these are getting hung out to dry by people. And I'm like, do you know that that's they're charging like at least $1,500 to live there.
Oh yeah.
You know, how much would you have to make to live there, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to be out robbing people is what they always go to.
No, and my biggest issue with a lot of the things that have been said during those the public hearings for that, the term "those people" have been used a lot.
Yeah.
That really bothers me. One, my first house was a trailer home,
Right.
so I guess I am those people.
Right.
Yeah.
And look at me now.
Yay!
And
How many people
but-
in this area started like that, though? Let's be honest here. I mean,
a lot.
I mean, everybody goes through that
and
at
that's
some
the
point.
thing. And I would love for Nixa to be that community where a new married couple gets an apartment.
Yeah.
And then they work and they
Right.
save up.
Raise
and then
their
they buy
family
their
and
first
stuff.
house.
Yes.
And then they raise their family. And they
maybe
go
start a
through it all.
business, you know.
Yeah.
But right
Yeah.
now, I mean, you know, the whole apartment thing that continues to be a huge issue. 24 years ago now was when they developed the last comprehensive plan in Nixa, and I know you're planning on getting into this,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
so it was old. It ended up
24 years.
going longer than it was supposed to because of COVID and delays on the census and all that stuff. And so 20 years ago, they said they didn't want more than 20% of the available zoned land to be multifamily.
Okay.
And we currently sit at 9%. And that's zoned, that's not built.
Wow.
So we're still not even halfway to where they said they wanted the top to be. And
And people in Nixa feel like they're overrun.
Yeah.
yes.
And that's what's wild to me because, you know, I watch it all online. You know, my mom's on city council. You know my mom very well. I hope you got some peanut butter balls this year and some caramel balls.
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. I figured she wouldn't exclude you,
They
but
didn't even make it home.
I figured.
I got one of each, or a bag of each,
Oh.
since I'm the mayor.
Yeah.
I got,
Oh, the perks of
Good
being
job,
a
darling.
yeah,
But-
I was pretty happy.
But you know, listening to the stories and like watching the city council meetings online, it's tough sometimes, especially during COVID. And there's one thing that I always tell people when I'm out in public and they're talking about it, or I'm even talking about it on Facebook, which is where most of it comes from. Is, you know, you can sit here all day long and talk about it on Facebook and be the person who is always negative about things. There's a couple people that come to mind, but you know, as far as that's concerned, you know, for you to get your voice heard, why would you just do it on a forum that really means nothing when you can go to the city council meetings and express yourself to them? And the one thing that kind of clicked in my head about this is when my mom was talking about it during COVID and all the meetings that you guys had and how they were going. And she said, well, you know, whenever we have city council meetings and we have to vote on something, the people that show up are technically pretty much the ones that we only hear. So how do we vote? You know, how do we go about it when we know a large majority of the people don't want this to happen, but the people that showed up are the ones that, you know, that we have to listen to at that point.
Yep.
So how do you find that balancing act? I mean, how do you market it well enough, because you guys market it enough and everybody knows you can just go to these, right? But how do you get those people to show up to these things? It drives me bonkers.
you know, that if you figure that out, let me know.
Yeah, right.
But
Okay.
one thing that I've done is I've completely backed off of any Facebook group. I've left
Good for
all
you.
the Nixa neighbors groups.
Good for you.
Because I that's not the right way to go about anything.
Right.
Especially hiding behind a name that might not even be you.
Very true.
And so I backed out all of them. And I do post on my mayor Facebook page, but then that's it.
Good.
I will not get engaged in a comment section.
Oh man,
And
you'd be there all day, dude.
Yes. And I normally say, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, reach out to me. Here's my cell phone number, my email address.
That's awesome.
And anytime I talk to anybody, whether they're having an issue with their neighbor and want me to look into it because of a trash can being left out or whatever it is, like, you need to come to the meetings.
Right.
Like, because a lot of people say they believe what they see on Facebook.
Yes.
Which is, your voice won't be heard.
Yep.
Well, okay, maybe the 6 people that came and said they didn't want a development to happen and the council voted against them, I could see why you would say that. However, let's take that land at Main Street and Tracker.
Right.
No one can answer what else would be good there.
You know, I've noticed that.
Give me something. Give me a new idea, because single family housing is not good for that corner.
No. Gosh, no.
You wouldn't be able to sell a house.
No, you wouldn't be able to get into your house.
No.
It's that busy.
And it would be
Industrial park.
right. Well, that would make them even more.
Oh
mad.
gosh.
Yeah, and that was kind of my deal. Is what would be a better fit for that?
Another bowling alley?
I would think that a Dollar General would look really good right there, Jared.
Shut your mouth.
For those of you on the Nixa pages, you know what I'm talking about. But
I will say this though. I mean, we were talking about how do you get your voice heard. This is another reason to go back again to organizing your neighborhood. You know, get to know your neighbors, get to know, and then you can do things like, I don't know, everybody kind of talks about it, and then you send a representative to these city council meetings.
That's
you don't all have to go.
That's it, right
and
there.
you get
Thank you,
There's
David.
a job description for this. It's called a lobbyist
Yes.
or a representative.
Right.
Yep.
But in this case, it's like, you know, if you don't want to get involved and go to these meetings, I get it, because I've been to several hundreds of these meetings over my political science stuff that I've done.
And you were in Jeff City too, and all that.
And I was in Jeff City
with
and I
Bob.
interned up there, and a lot of other things here locally. I've been on committees and all that
Sure.
stuff with the city of Springfield
Right.
and all that. You don't have to go to the meetings. Just make sure you send in your thoughts and your ideas and through official channels.
I
and
think that's amazing.
Send somebody there
read
to
the
represent
agenda.
you.
Read the agenda.
Just looking
Yeah.
at the agenda
Right.
and shooting
And I know-
a text message to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
hey, I don't agree with this. Blah,
And you don't. You
Yeah.
just
Great.
don't be rude
But
and don't compare him to a clown or something. I don't know.
Right.
Just
Can be.
say your
I've
thoughts.
heard-
Right.
it all.
But, you know, like Christian County, I know Christian County, they've been forced to have people fill out a form of a speaking form, I think is what
Yeah.
they're calling it, to be able to speak at
That's
these
what
events.
Springfield does.
And I
Yeah.
think that's probably one of the best channels. I think some people don't like it because it feels like more big government. But how do you corral all these ideas?
Yep.
But, going back to what we talked about before this, that was a good segue because I'm on the community development team. We don't call it committee anymore. It's CDT for the Greater Springfield Board of Realtors. And we've been going through the last year, we've been hooking up with the MU Extension, Restore SGF, which we hope to bring to Nixa at some point. And the Community Development Committee, we met with the MU Extension. A guy from the MU Extension lives in Republic, and it really broke it down to the most simple form of what you just said, of sending a representative for you. Is they started out with driveway talks where they started out with 4 people. He just said, hey, let's get together. We're trying something new for MU Extension to do some research. And, they started out with 4. That became 30 really quick. It became 70 real quick.
Yeah.
It became 100 people real quick.
And it's not an HOA.
It's not an
It's
HOA.
it's a homeowners. It's a neighborhood association.
Kind of like I
Yeah.
guess a coalition maybe or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. They just started calling it driveway talks. And the coolest part about the whole entire thing was that it started spurring ideas in people's minds of, I'm hearing all of these things from 100 people every week or every month about the problems that they're always talking about really come down to city government and what they can do or what city government should be doing for them or whatnot. And it started out with one guy who said, you know what, I've heard enough. Maybe if I run for office and I run for city council, I can be the voice for these people. And he's getting a lot done now. I mean, with the mayor that's in Republic right now, who's awesome at being open like you are, which is something, growing up in Nixa, we never had a mayor that was accessible. It was always kind of like, there's the mayor over there, the city council's here, we deal with the city council or some other representative, but the mayor has never been accessible in any city that I know of. But I think Nixa, Ozark, and Republic are doing a phenomenal job with that. I mean, you're giving people your cell phone number, Jared. That's dangerous, but I'm the same way. I mean, all my clients, everybody I deal with, they all get my cell phone number.
Well, and something I want to throw in there, which I think maybe Jared can attest to, but in all my experience with being at the state, with being the city, people there want to help the community.
Yes,
they're
that's
not.
why
They're not
there.
intentionally trying to stonewall you. More often than not, it is because they're not getting feedback of what's needed.
Right.
Like for example, I know in Springfield there are literally grants to put sidewalks into neighborhoods. All you have to do is go and talk to the plan and development
Committee.
board.
Yeah,
Not the committee, but the department.
Oh, yes.
And they will help you walk through it. Now, I know all this, and I still haven't gone and done it. But sometimes it comes down to time and the ability to do
But that's
these
something
things.
I didn't know.
But if your neighborhood works together and you know what you want, you can approach the city and say, "Hey, do you have programs for this? Do you have grants for this?" And they were happy to help you with this stuff.
So is that something that most cities have, or how does that work?
I know
that's tough,
We
but-
don't, but we have a list of areas that need sidewalks. What's crazy is with the amount of stuff that you see on social media about Nixa not having enough sidewalks, we get pushback every time we go to put in a sidewalk.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting ready to
So-
have
For the
one.
people that are affected by the sidewalk.
We're getting ready to
I
have
will
one
say
here
this:
soon.
we actually need to go to commercials really quickly. But when we get back, we will go to the great sidewalk debate in Nixa.
Oh, very
Who
good.
would have thought?
We'll be right back then. Yeah. All right. Well, before we left, we were talking sidewalks in Nixa, and it seems like it
Big
is-
sidewalks,
as
little
mundane,
sidewalks.
as mundane as that sounds, it becomes one of the biggest talking points I've ever seen. So, so tell us where this was headed, because this was kind of a cliffhanger.
So we actually do get a lot of pushback with sidewalks. I don't know if you've been down the new Truman Boulevard that goes into a big roundabout.
Yeah.
People love roundabouts.
Oh, love it.
But
Yeah.
we
They're
actually have
nice.
a sidewalk on one side and a trail on the other side. It's a 10-foot wide concrete trail. So bikes.
So not a sidewalk.
No, I mean, you can walk on it, or you can bike on it. You can ride a golf cart, I guess.
Oh, all right.
But
Okay.
we're trying to do more of the walkability throughout the city.
Which is amazing.
I like that you
So-
call it a trail.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And I guess if it's wider than 5 feet, it's a trail.
Okay.
So a couple years ago, we had a sidewalk come up on Old Wilderness.
Okay.
And we were going to put one in there, and some neighbors came and spoke against it. And
Why?
um,
Do you remember?
Because it was going in their yard.
various reasons. One was because of PTSD. I'm not sure how
What?
that. I don't know.
Loud noises.
Yeah.
yeah.
Even though they did build an Aldi right across the street and a Casey's, but I'm not so sure about it. It was just they just didn't want a sidewalk.
Sure.
And so at the time, I mean, I was all for it, but the council let it die.
Wow.
So that is actually the only thing right now, that stretch between Highway 14 and was that kind of where Casey's and Applebee's and Brahms is at?
Yeah.
That is
yeah.
the only stretch that keeps you from getting from Highway 14 to the hospital without a sidewalk.
Wow.
That's a problem for me.
I was going to say, that's
Yeah,
a big
that
problem,
is.
especially
Yeah.
with the amount of the older generations that live in Nixa.
Yep.
And that is such an accessible little hospital right there, too.
Yeah.
Huh.
I've wondered that, though.
So it was it's been on my list, and then we actually got, one of the council members got an email from a constituent saying that, he has to drive his wheelchair in the street
Into the street.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
to get to the hospital.
Oh,
And that was
man.
when
That's a good thing to rally behind right there.
Yeah.
That's a safety
so
issue then.
I'm like, it's time to bring it back.
So at what point in that process do you, and I'm going to try to choose my words wisely, because I know you're a mayor and I don't want you getting in trouble for what I say either, but at what point do you go, okay, this is a safety issue now. We have to address this, whether we understand that you aren't happy with this situation and it's your yard. We get it.
But is it really their yard?
But people always think that it's going to lower property values and do this and do that.
Yeah.
But literally, they're not used that much. But
Yeah.
it is a safety issue when you start talking
Yeah.
about people in wheelchairs that are on the road, and that's a busy road.
And it's
Well,
curvy.
And I
It
do
is.
want to address the yard thing. Like,
Yeah.
literally, there's an easement in pretty much every single yard for the first 10 feet that's the city's for
Right.
drainage ditches,
But
for sidewalks.
they think
it's
since
not
they mow
their yard.
it is their yard.
Yeah.
And on this instance, all of the water and electric is on the opposite side of the street.
Right.
Which is also why we can't put it on the opposite side of the street.
Right.
Because you're taking a $300,000 sidewalk and making it $12 million.
Gosh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah, because you're having to move everything at that
But
point.
to answer your question,
Yeah, how do you force
honestly,
it?
when I was on council, I felt like that was the time. I
Yeah.
felt like that was they were building the hospital. It wasn't open yet.
Right.
And
the Jiffy Lube and all the other
Yeah.
stuff that's going in right
and
now.
no telling, what else could be there that could cause that
Yeah, in
foot
case your
traffic.
hover round needs an oil change.
So how we handle that now is, we go in and we'll have to get temporary easements for this
Okay.
and to do the work, but each house will get paid. So they
Okay.
will get an appraised value of that section of their property.
No kidding.
And
Wow.
same thing if we were to run a sewer line underground
Okay.
through your yard.
Okay.
You still get paid.
Okay.
So you're paying the homeowners to put sidewalk on their property.
Basically.
Interesting.
Not even.
Yeah.
I always thought it'd be like an eminent domain type thing. So
Well, again, though, I thought
that's
it was,
like a last resort.
And there's
I know in Springfield they own that part of your land.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even, you don't even own it. Like,
This
for
is a
example,
little-
I let my grass grow a little bit too long in the ditch because I was like, I want to grow flowers. And, but then the city came by and they cut it all down. And I
Okay.
was like, okay, well, I guess
it was over their
it
4-inch
is-
limit.
Yeah, well, and it was a ditch, and I probably shouldn't have grown it out because it was
Right.
probably impeding the water and stuff. But it's like, that's since they own it, it was like they came and cut it, and it wasn't a big deal. And it was like,
okay.
okay,
And-
I learned my lesson. But
Little
so is
different.
Nixa laws, are they
well,
not the
this
same way?
this has curb and gutter, so
Right.
everything's
Oh.
on the outside. So
Okay.
we don't have ditches running through their
You don't
yards
have
or
to.
anything like that.
Gotcha.
And typically, when we get something, we do a temporary easement just to do the construction, and then we're out, and it's back to yours to maintain. But
So they have to maintain their sidewalk.
well, I mean, if the
If
sidewalk
it breaks,
drops,
they
like
have to.
mowing it.
Yeah, just
Oh,
going
okay,
around.
right. Gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
if it breaks, that's on us.
'Cause I had a friend tell me about how when she was in Colorado, it was your job to clear the sidewalk off in front of your house.
Oh,
And
when
if you
snow and
didn't,
stuff?
if you didn't
Yeah.
clear your sidewalk off, you actually were liable for anybody that slipped and fell on your
I'm
sidewalk.
not sure that's not Missouri also.
It sounds familiar to me actually,
Like,
because
I
it is a
actually
safety
think it
issue.
might be.
Well, because
Interesting.
you can't pay somebody because of tax dollars. We don't have enough tax revenue to pay somebody to go snow blow all that stuff off when we get 2 inches of snow.
No.
Sure, right.
And it's not really a huge priority because most people won't be using it. But in Colorado, I can see it because there is so much snow.
Ton of snow.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that walk out there, honestly. But well, that's awesome that you explained that. Now, as far as like,
Now to back up one more thing.
please do, yeah,
If they say no,
yeah,
I'm not going to take that offer. You're not doing that. Then we'd go down the process of condemnation. So we don't. They'll still get paid.
right,
They'll get paid the appraised value,
okay,
assuming that the judge says okay. Which in a case like this, where that's the
Public
only
safety,
thing
yeah.
that's
Yeah, if
keeping
it's one
people from
house,
going to the
yeah.
hospital, then yeah.
right.
But there was a lot of different reasons why they didn't want their landscaping torn up.
Sure.
That whole stretch of road, if you go drive it today, there's I think 6 shrubs on the whole street.
Right.
So
Right.
we can move
Right.
those.
Right. Mailboxes, we can move those.
We can move those easy.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays construction equipment is just so precise as far as like digging out the exact what you
Yeah.
need for the sidewalk and doing all that
Minimizing the
stuff.
mess,
And-
hopefully. But
Yeah, the
there's
mess
always
is
gonna be
very
a mess,
minimized,
but-
and
Yeah, it'll be it. I mean, it'll be a quick job, but
Yeah.
it'll take us longer to get all the easements and everything before
Right.
than it would to actually do the project.
Right. Well,
which is
you
what
know-
we're dealing with the infrastructure upgrade on the west side of town as
Yeah.
well.
Well, you guys, that project that happened there on 14, next to 14 Mill there at the crossroads and stuff. It was a long process, but
A lot of work.
You got to imagine the amount of traffic that rolls through that place too.
Yeah.
How hard that's got to be. Now I know Ozark had a much bigger issue with Jackson Street than we did in Nixa, so I'm thankful that it got done and it looks great. You guys did an awesome job on it, and it's extending further out too. I always get asked this, and I've got a rental house in Nixa there by Tiffany Highlands, and everybody always talks about when that's going to be, 3 or 4 lanes going all the way to Ozark, because it is a long stretch of curvy road and it's tough to do that.
it is.
Yeah. I would guess, Christian County government offices are all moving. They're moving their campus pretty much, or they're creating a campus
didn't
over
know
there
that.
by B&B Theaters.
No
Really?
kidding. I didn't know that.
Didn't realize that.
They
That's going to
bought
help.
40 something acres, and they're selling off the front parts for commercial.
Is that where that brown house is, way off on the corner? Maybe.
Yeah, and there's
Okay.
been those bridges sitting in the middle
yeah,
of
and
the
all
field.
the culverts and stuff.
Those
yeah.
bridges are
Yeah.
actually going to be part of the trail that's going to go around the campus.
Oh, very
Oh,
cool.
that's cool.
So I think that is going to kind of help.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you can increase traffic, that's when they're going to get into.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's
Probably
going to
widening
create
it.
a whole lot of traffic there too.
I keep wondering that about Division in Springfield. It's like 2 lanes all the way across.
Yeah.
And there's only one entrance to 65 on the east side of town. On the west side of town, there's no entrance to 44. But they just built the brand new prison over there,
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah.
Greene County, and
That's
I'm
right.
like,
Yeah.
okay, how long is
That's
it going
right.
to be
Before
before
it
they
fills in.
widen the bridge and have entrances put on, and they have the division turned to multiple
Well, and
lanes?
that's the biggest key to everything that people don't think about is, everybody thinks about the now and
Yep.
the past, but they don't think
Yep.
about the future of something like Nixa that it's already outgrowing itself or outgrown itself. Ozark's
Yeah.
the same way.
Yeah.
They've run out of room to annex, to zone. to put these.
You get those legacy landowners holding on to things.
Yeah. I mean, you've got little.
Speaking of
pockets
growth,
and
I was
stuff.
going to say this earlier. I mean, Stratford. If you look at Stratford, and it's how it's laid out, following 44, like basically goes out like maybe 500 feet. It feels like
That's what it
from
feels
the road.
like, yeah.
But
A
it's
strip.
because of the legacy landowners. They
Right.
can't develop out past with the strips
Lots
that they
of
have
farms.
because all the land is inaccessible.
Well, and then you start talking nowadays about the historic aspect of everything. Stratford
Yeah.
was a big Native American area. So is Nixa, down at Delaware Town and stuff like that. But, so I think as far as like how do you expand a city that's out of room, you have to go up. And that means more apartments. That means more multifamily, more duplex, communities and things like that. So
I think the multifamily too, the population density helps with walkability.
that's-
And I think that's a big movement right now
Yeah.
in the United States, especially where you want to develop more green space. You
Yeah.
want to develop. People don't necessarily want to learn how to drive. That's a big thing in the younger generation.
I
It's
hear
like,
that a lot too.
And if we could, develop mass that's probably why you got that letter about the mass transit from that 11-year-old who's like, I don't want to learn how to drive. I don't know.
I want to ride the bus.
But ride a bus or
Monorail.
You live in like the farmers market that's in Springfield here, where or the farmers park,
Yeah.
where you have the lower levels are all
yeah.
commercial, and then it's
yeah.
apartments above it.
Yeah.
And that's what most cities tend to do because you get a strip center out of it and multifamily, and Nixa's got enough strip centers.
Yeah, PUDs are becoming huge, but I feel like kind of the one thing that we're doing right now
Dog parks.
is
That's a big thing I've seen too, but I don't know if
Apartment
Nixa is planning that.
Everyone wanted one. We built one, and then everyone made fun of it. So, granted, I will say it could use some more stuff.
Sure,
sure.
Like
But I
dogs?
kind of had to change my
And people.
yeah. I kind of had to change my mindset on some things
Good.
and not go meet with the legacy landowners and tell them
Right.
you need to lower your price,
Right.
but we need to figure out a new way to market Nixa to make it seem more valuable to investors.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that me and the assistant city administrator are kind of working on, because economic development, that's one of those things that we could create an awesome plan right now, but it may not take flight for 10 years.
Right.
Like
and you
the-
might
like the
not even
Ado
be mayor
Center,
then.
for
Yeah.
example. I
Took
mean, that's a
while,
great example
Which he was
of-
involved
Yeah.
in that too, I'm sure,
Yeah.
with Meridian Title. But I mean, as far as the positive things that Nixa does, I see so many positive things that they, like I said at the last podcast, people always focus on the negative side of things.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on where your mindset is, but if you think about what's the potential is of a place like Nixa, which we've already surpassed most of the potential we all thought it had in the 80s. We thought it would stall out, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and more people. So now it's starting to get to the point where you have this urban sprawl of people that are wanting to move out of Springfield that have lived there forever too. So they go to Nixa, they go to Ozarks, Stratford, Willard. So when people start thinking about how positive it could be and what it has blossomed into, but it's getting ready to be its own monster that's even bigger than it is. So when you think about the planning side of it, Nixa did such a good job with this new program that you guys have. With the economic outlook I forget what it's called specifically. Can you expand on that for us real quick? Because this is everyone in Nixa's opportunity to physically get involved with the city and the progress that it's making and the decisions.
So the Nixa Vision 2045, that's a comprehensive plan really to cover the next 20 years of Nixa. And it started out with a survey, which has been insane because typically when you
Oh my gosh.
put out for a survey, we got 25,000 people in Nixa, you might get like 75 responses.
Yeah, just like the voting there too, but
Exactly.
whole other issue.
In the first couple days, we had over 400
Nice.
people fill it, and it just continues and continues.
That's
I will say,
great.
and the schools helped us a lot. They put it out in their newsletter, which is awesome.
Good.
But it actually gives the community a chance, and the people who wanted to volunteer to be on the stakeholder committee, we picked, I think, 75 people.
Wow.
They get to be involved. They get to decide the land usage. They
Right.
get to
Like literally?
yeah. They create the comprehensive plan that the Planning and Zoning Department will use for the next 20 years.
Wow.
Wow.
And so if this committee says that here on the corner of Greg and we'll see
14.
Northview,
Yeah, there you go.
we only want an industrial park.
Okay.
Then Planning and Zoning should never approve anything there unless it is for industrial use.
Whoa, dude.
And those
That's
things
crazy.
are good. They're good to have because it's made by the community.
Yes.
And then when the community questions you for saying yes to multifamily, well,
There it was.
It was
You
decided.
had the opportunity.
That was your guys' Hail
Yeah.
Mary on it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, because to me, I sit there and I watch this stuff on Facebook, and I'm like, guys, if you only would just get involved in this instead of just talking about it, you might be able to make a change. Like, people think that their voice
or
isn't
even
going
better
to get heard.
yet, understand that the process is actually more complicated than you think it is.
So with
Yes.
this,
So-
yeah, it is because, and that's what these people are about to find out. Because
Yeah.
do you give them access to? I mean, what kind of access do you give these people to make these decisions at the same time? You know, do they get maps of what it is already? What possible zoning could be in certain areas?
I'm sure they're going to have public hearings too
Yeah,
from
you've
the
got to
people that are in
have
the area.
studies done a lot of times
Yeah.
and stuff
Yep.
like that. So are they going to be
Environmental
involved in
impacts.
all of that?
Yep. So they get. I mean, they
Wow.
get Olson Studios is who we hired to do this. $150,000 project.
Phew.
And you know, it's kind of the forward SGF.
Yeah.
That's kind of theirs.
Yeah.
Ozark did one as well. But they get. I mean, they get traffic counts. They get everything
Wow.
and see where the growth is at. And so I mean, they're given the right tools to make the right decisions.
I mean, they basically are city leaders at that point.
Yeah.
And you're just letting the regular folks. And I think that every city on the planet should have this. I think it would make all of your jobs a lot easier because now you've got accountability with more people, and you can't just put someone up on a stake and say, this is the person who did it. This is a whole bunch of people. So now you got to almost burn down the whole city just to get rid of them, right?
Yep.
Which wouldn't happen. But I do feel like that's the most positive change that could have come out of, I think, I'm not going to speak for you, but I would think during COVID, you guys learned a lot about your community and the people in it just based on the feedback, right?
Yes.
So
That's
now
definitely-
you've kind of put it in their court.
Yeah. COVID is definitely a time that, you know, I've been asked if you could go back and do it differently, would you? Well, of course. Who wouldn't? And I mean, because
We would all do a
It
lot of
was-
things different.
that was a day by day of hearing things that I never thought I would have to hear.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And
well,
making-
information coming from so many different places too.
And getting, you know, zero information from the health department because they were so swamped. And it's like, so I'm supposed to make a decision on this?
Ooh.
So that's where it was,
Oof.
you know, it was an unknown territory for a lot
really
of people.
was.
But I think you know, you guys touched on it, the lack of for better words,
Yeah.
lack of understanding the processes and everything. And it's my wife the other day got in a Facebook conversation.
Oh, here we go. I love these.
About
I get in a lot of those too.
someone who said that, you know, they were upset because they didn't think the pool was going to open next summer.
Oh.
And then someone asked, well, why would you say that? And they said, well, because I haven't seen any bit of work getting done there.
Oh my gosh, there's been a lot of money spent on that already.
Yeah,
Holy
and it's not as
smokes.
easy. It's not like you're going to see backhoes out there digging up all the concrete around the pool to try to locate a leak.
No, they located as
we
gently
had
as possible.
cameras going up in that thing. And then,
Air testing.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
and then once you figured out the problem and figured out kind of an estimate on how much it's going to cost,
Good luck.
well, we don't have that money for
Right.
this year.
So how do you get that
we
money?
had to wait.
Right.
And
So do you have another part of the budget that opens up at a certain time for something like that? You have to gather money? Special assessment taxes?
take
What do you-
away from something else.
Okay.
Okay. And grant, there's also, you know, there's the parks get impact fees and different things that we can use.
Sure.
We've done a really good job of kind of holding on to the federal money that we received
Good.
from COVID.
Good.
And trying to use it on things that'll benefit the whole community.
Good.
And you can apply for grants and other things
yeah.
from the state and the federal
Hopefully, yeah.
government.
Yeah.
And
So I think we should be good. I have an emergency council meeting today.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Because we have the plan engineered to fix the pool
Oh,
with some new additions.
good.
So
Okay, so they're going to get better
we're going to
stuff
make
out
it
of
look
the
a
deal.
little nicer. Yeah.
We're not getting a lazy river like Republic, though, are we?
No.
no, because Amazon didn't decide to build
No.
a warehouse in your city.
I mean, I can go get a backhoe
Right,
and dig
let's
a
go do
long
that.
circle in a
That's it. We'll
soccer
get some.
field.
We'll get some.
That's
tarps.
good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tarps.
the
I guess
tarps.
it'll be more of a moat
Yeah.
a little bit of tar.
than a lazy river.
Hey, as long as I'm on a raft, I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I'm
It'll,
good.
it'll be a lazy waterfall. You have
Lazy
to trudge
wa-
back up the hill.
It's more like a lazy creek,
Yeah.
we call it. But which, you know, but that's the thing about Nixa is it is such a superb little town. I mean, me and my wife travel all over the place, and I'll tell you, we look forward to getting back in this area, and especially Nixa, because we know that it's a safe place. I mean,
Yep.
let's just chat a little bit about how safe it is. I mean, Nixa just got an award, am I right, or recognition on the safety of this
safest
town.
cities in the United States.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people at the same time were whining and complaining that we were wanting a new, you know, city hall or police station and things like that. And it's like, you know, if we keep that little itty bitty police station that we've had since I was a kid, that doesn't hold anybody.
No.
Then you've got to ship people off. It becomes more expensive. There's a lot of reasons why you do these things.
Oh, Christian County's built a new campus. Love a new jail. That's there too, right?
Just send them over there. Yeah.
Well, we actually shut down the jail inside the PD and made it offices and storage.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But honestly, what you just said, and a lot of people don't realize, it's so easy to say something negative on social media and get a bunch of likes and get a bunch of comments.
Oh, yeah.
And
that was a big part of our
you
discussion in our last podcast.
and you say something positive,
oh, you get hung out.
crickets.
Yeah. Or you get hung up to dry like I do. Yeah.
But what's crazy is, and people don't realize it, when you show support in your community, I mean, it's contagious. So the last election, the law enforcement tax passed.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Good for you guys.
Before that, I don't know if your mom had told you, if you had watched any of the meetings, that we were struggling keeping police officers.
Yes.
And I mean,
It's an issue around the country.
We were kept throwing money at it,
even though they're the safest place ever.
Yeah, but it's just not respected anymore.
Absolutely.
I mean, it went from these are heroes to they're not all.
That's a shame, though.
But whenever that tax passed, I mean, it was like our recruiting became easier.
Yeah.
We weren't.
Is this because you give them more money? Like pay them more? And which I have nothing against that.
Better facilities, safer environment.
And a community that invests in its law enforcement.
There you go.
Because we had upped the pay. We were above Christian County, Ozark.
Wow.
And because we had to.
Right.
I mean, people were coming to Nixa because it was the best training. There wasn't a single PD in the state that would not hire a Nixa police officer.
Wow.
Because
unreal.
They were trained well.
That's good.
And so they were coming out of there like top candidates for every PD in the nation.
Wow.
And I'm like, we're training them. How do we keep them?
Yeah.
And so we just
better facilities,
more money. And then finally I'm like, all right, at some point. And then as soon as that happened, I mean, it's became losing an officer to a different career it's upsetting to me, but it's a lot better than losing an officer to another police department.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or to something else.
And because then in my mind, I lose sleep because I'm like, what are they doing different than
Absolutely.
what do I need to do?
What do I need to do better to keep them, right? Well, and you see a lot of other states and cities that they spend a ton on their police department.
Yeah.
Brand new cars all the time, brand new equipment all the time, training all the time. But a small city, it's hard to do that, especially when you have people that don't. When you mention the word taxes, you can almost get burned at the stake. It's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Much like saying the word apartments or Section 8 housing.
And as soon as you stop investing in the police department, that's when crime goes up.
Yes.
That's when you start having issues.
Right.
And
good police officers, too.
Yeah.
Because you have a good group of police officers,
too.
Shout out to Justin Henderson as well, by the way. But
that's the one you picked?
I know, right?
No, I love Henderson. He's a good dude.
We are getting close to the end now.
Well, just to leave people on a positive note, we're not going to hand out your cell phone number here, but as far as, I think one of the biggest takeaways for today would be to just now people know a lot more about how to get involved with this than they did before, which is key. To all of our success. It doesn't matter if you live in Nixa or you live around Nixa. It's key to success to get involved.
Yes.
For you to be stepping into what felt like a hornet's nest when you first got there, I think you've handled it very well. You're very good for this job as well. I'm sorry you only get paid pennies on the dollar to do what you do on a daily basis and get yelled at on a daily basis. I think that's one thing that probably should be changed, but then you have that talking point of, they're getting paid.
Definitely.
Well, city mayors, not to say you're broke and you're poor, I'm just saying this isn't your only job.
No,
as a city mayor.
The $300 a month before taxes. I think it's $277 after tax.
God, you're
a month?
Killing me, man.
A month, yeah.
To do all of this.
So
yes.
that's what I get paid. But honestly, I would do it if it was zero.
Right. It's almost like they understand that, so they're like, we'll give you a little stipend just for a little bit of your time, but it's definitely worth a lot more.
Pay for a meal.
But I think that's also what people need to understand, too, is that city council members, people like yourself, they're not highly paid people through the city.
No.
Your tax dollars don't go to your pocket.
No, council gets paid even less.
That's what I mean. It's like almost free.
They're like $67 after tax.
Oh, wow.
When my mom got started on city council, I said, Mom, are you just wanting to go get yelled at for free? I mean, you were a school teacher for 30 years, so you got enough of it from kids. Now you're going to get it from adults, but it's a servant mentality, though.
The one time you can help someone, it makes it all worth it.
There you go. And now you're helping
I'll
a
be
lot
the
of
opposite
people.
side of this. We need to pay them well so we can have people that can dedicate all their time and resources to it,
Well,
and not have to go out and get another job. Because I dealt with this at the state capitol. You get paid $35,000 a year to be a state legislator and a state senator, and it's like you're dealing with now it's like a $35 billion budget,
wow.
and you expect these people to do it half time,
35,000.
part time.
Well,
So
yeah.
if you want a good city, if you want a good leadership, don't be afraid to pay them well.
Pay
You don't
them
have to. You don't have to pay them $500,000. I mean, I'm sure you'd be happy with even $40,000
or even
$50,000.
$400 a month, you know.
or even $400 a month.
Yeah.
That's just it's one of my soapboxes right there. It's like
Well, it
it's
is.
okay to pay people all right.
It's a good talking point because, they go to their jobs and expect to get paid more, right? You go to your job and you're like, man, I do a lot of work. I'm going to ask for a raise this year, that type of thing.
You try to do
Mayors
that
don't
with the
have
mayor.
that.
Yeah, you try to ask people to pay you more. It's
It's
not even like pulling teeth. It's you're out of office.
And
at
it's
that
not a
point.
sob story by any means, but you do well in your personal life enough that it was just like Brian Steele. People had this misunderstanding that he was doing all of this and was getting paid all this money.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys don't know. He doesn't get paid much at all.
No.
And it's
He's
literally
lucky he has another job.
it's public knowledge too. You can go look up what people make.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing about it.
Yeah.
Public knowledge and public things that people can have access to. What would be, just to leave us with something good that we can say, hey, maybe this is some homework for people. How do you get some of this information? I mean, how do you know what projects are going on? How do you know what topics are
Sure,
coming
there's a
up?
website.
Yep.
Right.
And
that
very
was-
helpful people at City Hall that will tell you.
There definitely is. And that
Jared's
was
cell
one
phone
thing-
number is 417.
Yeah, that was one thing that came about with the strategic plan, which was a whole nother committee that we didn't touch on, but was the transparency and knowing what's going on. And so that was why the city updated their website. There's actually a project board that pretty much tells all the projects that are going on. So if you see construction going on, you can go look and it'll have pictures of it and updates.
Wow.
But really, I tell everyone, shoot me an email, call me.
There you go.
Because it's a lot easier for me to find certain things.
Sure.
There's things that I want to get adjusted on our website. Things
There you
are a
go.
little cumbersome to find.
Sure.
But until then, they can ask me any question in the world
Very good.
that has to do with what's going on in the city, and I will, if I don't know the answer, I will definitely find it.
Right. And I would beg everybody, if you live in Nixa and you want to get involved, number one, keep an eye out for what Hannah McCaig and Eric Morello are doing with our community development team down in Nixa. They meet at Brahms on the first Monday of the month, I believe. But also to show up to these city council meetings.
Yeah.
Go to these things if you feel like you have a voice that wants to be heard. And just to leave us with this, you told me a story earlier about a guy that would show up to these city council meetings. And I'm not going to say he was a pain in your side or anything, but it kind of sounded like I watched some of those, and it was tough to watch because he kind of dominated everything. But tell everybody real quick, just because this backs up what you're saying about shoot me an email, communicate with me, I'll help you out. How did you handle that gentleman, and what is that relationship like now?
Honestly, he's a friend. And
Now he is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And really, it's understanding each other that is typically the problem. I may make a decision or I may say something during a council meeting that might make someone mad.
Sure.
Now, if they knew where I was coming from, that might change that.
Right.
And so
So what did you do?
I had a beer with him,
Yeah. You just said, hey, let's go have a beer?
maybe 3 beers.
Sure.
And
Well, long conversation. I
and
bet.
honestly we do it probably maybe once a month,
No
once every
kidding.
other month.
Wow.
Meet with him.
Huh.
And yeah.
And how has
I-
that changed your guys' relationship? How's it changed his mind?
I mean, I think we both continue to learn a lot from each other. He still doesn't agree with everything
Sure.
I do.
That's a good thing.
And
though.
I don't agree with everything
That's
he
good,
says.
though. That's a good.
And the cool thing is I get the last say during council meetings. So
But his voice was heard.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
took time out of your day to go meet this guy, to hear what he had to say, because you wanted to understand where he was coming from. And
Yep.
that is the biggest
Yeah.
thing that I think we can leave this conversation with, is the fact that people are trying to help. You guys are sincerely trying to help. But for you to go out of your way to talk to this guy outside of the doors and say, hey, let's talk to each other. Let's find out what's in your head. Let's find out what's in my head. Let's ultimately figure out a plan and a way to get your voice heard that might not be getting through otherwise. And I think that says more about who you are as a mayor and as how Nixa is as a city, That's the coolest thing I've ever heard besides this other economic outlook group that you guys have put together. So if you live in Nixa, get involved. It's super easy now to get involved with the city of Nixa. So Jarad Giddens, thank you so much for being here, dude.
Thanks for having
really
me.
appreciate it, man. And we'll definitely want to follow up with you when you get the lazy moat built.
Yeah.
I'll be there. But otherwise, good luck with everything in the future. We'll do some more stuff in the future when you guys have some more
good.
updates for us. But otherwise, everybody else, keep exploring the Ozarks.
Thanks again for listening to Exploring the Ozarks. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media channels to help us keep exploring the stories of the Ozarks. If you're looking for more ways to support our show, we have sponsorships for businesses and Patreon for individual supporters. Check the links in the description for more details. Thanks for your support, and keep exploring the Ozarks.